Welcome to Nugget 345 with Steve and Dana Groman. We recently were in the state of Ohio and went to the Orton Museum at Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio, and it is located on the Oval Mall of the university. The museum gallery is opened every weekday and sometimes on Saturday.
And it's beautiful, by the way, too.
The museum is located on the south side of the Oval. Orton Hall is the most distinctive building on the Oval and is topped by a beautiful bell tower containing the university chimes, which ring every 15 minutes, which means we got to hear them quite a few times.
We did hear them.
As you walk up the steps and into the main door, there is...
Of course, it's a dinosaur.
Orton Geological Museum, School of Earth Sciences. The point we want to make today is this is a beautiful museum. It's sort of old school, but there are a few problems.
Just a few. Timing?
And information. One of the major points is this is on a major university in the United States. Thousands upon thousands of students have walked through these doors through the past decades and continue to do so.
Many did while we were there.
Yeah, and learn about evolution. They're steeped in evolution. The worldview is so important that we put into the young minds. The OSU Geology Club was having a special meeting, and they were talking about volcanoes, minerals, crystals, fossils, and more. I bet that was really interesting. If they would just skip the time frame, how beautiful it would be if they were teaching the truth of God's flood.
Yeah, the items are really neat, but their time scale's all wrong.
This sign read, "If you look at this rock, what you see is bones and teeth from the skull of the dinosaur looming behind you." And they have this Cryolophosaurus ellioti from Jurassic rocks of Antarctica. I didn't know they found dinosaurs in Antarctica, did you?
Yeah, well.
Was discovered on Mount Kirkpatrick in the central Trans-Antarctic Mountains by Professor David Elliott of the Ohio State University's School of Earth Sciences. That is still cool, that this is something that was found by a gentleman that taught there.
It must have been warmer at one time, huh?
It must have been.
Just like the North.
While doing field work in 1991, Professor Elliott found a large femur extending from a tufaceous siltstone layer. Subsequent excavations by a team of paleontologists led by Augustana College's Professor William Hammer recovered about 130 bones from approximately 2.5 tons of rock. That was a big job.
That was a big job.
His team extracted enough bones from the rock to make casts of the pieces, which were then assembled to show what the skull would have looked like when the animal was living. Missing portions of the skull were reconstructed based on related carnivorous dinosaurs. That's one of the major points. And one of the families that was there, when they were walking around and looking at the different displays, one of the boys said, "This is a cast. This one's a cast. This one's a cast." And he said, "We could have just gone to our museum. We've got more real stuff at our museum."
There have not been many dinosaurs found, and so therefore they make casts of them. People go to museums, they see the cast, and they assume it's a real skeleton.
Right. It's normally identified, but you have to read.
You have to look for it.
Most of the displays had signs that referred to the different geologic time frames, and like this one says, "These bones were buried in river sediment of southern Pangaea during the early Jurassic. The site was in a relatively warm subpolar location, approximately 60 degrees to 70 degrees south paleo latitude." And I'm presuming all this lingo is Pangaea lingo?
Yeah, they have to have Pangaea. They have to have the continents in other places because obviously it was warmer. Well, in their mind, obviously it was warmer. But they also have to have names, these time scales, enormous amounts of time. They have to have names given to them so they can identify them. The whole thing's made up.
We're going to talk a little bit more about and show you evidence of these time frames and how all the time frames happened in Ohio, but that'll be in our next nugget. And continuing on here, they did have a giant ground sloth that is named after President Jefferson. President Jefferson was really into rocks and minerals and fossils, and that was one of the things that he had Lewis and Clark looking for. He wanted them to find a giant ground sloth.
And most of those bones were actually real. There were very few casts.
This one that they have there is one of 4 species of ground sloth that inhabited North America during the Ice Age. This leaf eater weighed about 1,800 pounds. Megalonx means big claw, while the species name honors Thomas Jefferson, who was one of the first in America to study fossil bones. They also had this giant armadillo-like ancestor. Well, we know it was huge because it was...
Yeah, obviously pre-flood.
It's just an armadillo. And they talk in the sign how these live in Texas and Florida. And we've seen armadillo plenty in Texas and one
They've
time in
actually
Florida.
scared you.
Yeah, y'all, I thought it was something really exciting like a panther. It ended up being an armadillo on a trail. It could have been a panther.
It made noise like one.
They also had this thing called a Dunkleosteosterelli. They have these names that make it really hard for me to say. This skull is a replica of an original that is on display in the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. Again, there are only a certain amount of fossils. They can't be in all places, and so
Right.
it's very exciting when you do get to see real fossils at certain places. A lot of times they just bring on cast. This one they claim was found in Lake Devonian, Cleveland Shale, Cleveland, Ohio, and Ohio has a lot of fossils, that is for sure. But again, the Devonian time frame. And of course, they had a T-Rex and talked about how he was a predator or a scavenger. And I know that the movies and evolutionary people mainly want to show T-Rex as a predator, but you've always taught that he was probably just a scavenger.
Yeah, they learned years ago, actually, that he really wasn't designed to be the fierce creature that the movies depict him to be. Just like many animals today, they just eat dead stuff.
Well, that's what they say in this sign. They talk about how he attacked living animals, and then they say, we also know it sometimes scavenged. They know that it was also a scavenger, but they have to keep that image up, don't they?
Well, absolutely. After all, it is a T-Rex.
They have this cast of the giant fossil that is shown in the Sternberg Museum. We have seen the entire true fish within a fish.
He died in the flood. He was certainly panicking.
And we don't know if he ate him, or maybe they got buried on top
They got
of each
buried
other.
on top of each other.
And they were superimposed, I guess. Would that be a way to say it?
It could be, but that particular one does seem to show that it is inside it. He probably did eat it and swallow it.
It's exciting for us that we actually saw the real
Yeah.
one at the Sternberg Museum. We'll end this nugget with this statement.
Fools begin by saying something foolish, but in the end, they speak nonsense. Ecclesiastes 10:13. And that's true.
It's the worldview. It's what they started out with. They have this scenario that they have to keep up.
All of it is nonsense.
All right. Well, thank you.